Hi all, Hipper here. Today we are doing a different build and not an agile build on Hipper because some of you have asked for that. So I've tried to do the ultimate reload build here using Müller here as like I don't usually use, but I'm doing now. And then as inspirations I have Belly here for 6% faster reload and Kuznetsov that gives me nearly 5% more range. Then of course I've chosen the 10% extra range, the 3% better fire chance, and the better AP shells and better penetration multiplier. And for the last one here, we've got basically better grouping. And of course the improved reload as well. Alright, so if we have a look at the ship here and go down to artillery, you can see I have more than 18 kilometer range and only 8.5 second reload, which is quite crazy with the guns on Hipper. Of course I'm paying for it in agility here, and I have 4.5 second rudder roughly and 35 knots. Of course, if you prefer to have ingenious instead of range, you can pick Admiral Hipper as the commander instead of Müller, but I go with Müller because he is fully upgraded. So back in 2019, when World of Warships Legends came out, I had similar builds to this Müller build here on all my cruisers. Because back then I thought, oh, damage, probably the way to go. Just do as much damage as we can, and it's as simple as that. Of course, it's not that simple, and that's not in any way saying that a damage build is inferior in any way to an agile build. I don't think it is. It's just a different way of playing the game, basically. And the reason I like agile builds is that they allow me to get in closer. Pretty much. I think that's more fun, and that's actually the main reason I stopped using aggressive builds on cruisers or damage builds, because I think that a so-called defensive build is more aggressive. But anyway, that's a different thing. I stopped using the damage builds because I thought they made the game boring, and I still think they do. And now I see lots of other players using damage focused build or reload focused or range focused or whatever you want to call them. But like I said, I find them quite boring. And if I had to play every cruiser with a build like this, I don't think I would be playing this game, to be honest. So the first thing I want to point out here is that I have more than 18 kilometer range with this build here. But in reality, it's very rare that you need that sort of range. As you can see here, 16 and a half kilometer, something like that is fine. You really don't need any more. 17, 18, 19, 20 kilometers, that is overkill, except for the Russian tier 7 cruisers, I think. They live and breathe, well, long distance shooting. But on just a standard cruiser, I think 16 is fine. On my agile builds, it's very rare to have one of my cruisers have a range of more than about 15 kilometers. So that means that to be able to actually do damage in an agile build, you need to get in closer. And like I said before, it's just a different way of playing. If you prefer to sit at a distance here at like 20 kilometers or whatever it is and set things on fire, that's your prerogative. You can play the game that way. I don't play it that way for the reasons I've already said. And at that distance, HE is the better choice most of the time. And I mean, Hipper isn't really an HE cruiser, but if you force it into the role like I am doing here, yeah, it can do pretty well. And I'm pretty sure if I kept using this setup here, I could probably get the damage record, because for Hipper it's only 220 or something like that, which should be quite possible to beat. Because in this game here, I'm not really doing anything aggressive here. I'm trying my best not to rush in like I always do, or not rush in, but play from like closer to the cap. Let's put it like that. But I want to see how much damage I can do with this build here. So I'm pretty much just playing the very, very standard and extremely boring cruiser play here, where you sit at max distance and you just make sure you always keep that distance to the enemy, and then you just shoot at them. And yeah, like I said a few times now, it's extremely boring. If I want to play like this, I play a battleship. So another reason I don't like this playstyle here is that I don't feel like I contribute anything to the battle. I know I'm being extremely passive in this battle here because I'm testing out the build. But if you have a range and damage build like this, it makes sense to use that range. Just like I said, in an agile cruiser, you don't have the range, so you're forced to get in close and just make yourself useful, basically. So I noticed very early on in the game here, back in 2019, that the players who employ this tactic here, they kind of, maybe not on purpose, but they prosper from their team getting annihilated while they, well, sit at the back and shoot. And as you can see, like, I've lost at least 2 battleships over here. Maybe 3, actually, I'm not really sure. And I would much rather be in there and fighting with them, at least a little bit closer. But that's not the strength of this build here. This build here is picking off ships at a distance. And like, there's no way I can contest this cap here. I'm going to be absolutely pummeled because I'm not agile enough to avoid the shots going in from these 3 ships here. Now, if I had an agile build, I would probably take this champagne here out of the equation, and then I'd head in to take on the last battleship head on, basically. But like I said before, with 4.5 second rudder, you're just not agile enough to avoid the shells, and I would take so much damage going in that maybe I could get off 1 set of torps when I got in, but it would probably be a futile exercise. So builds like these, they excel at sitting at a distance and just picking off the enemies like this. Of course, it's better to do in a more HE focused cruiser. See here, I'm trying to use a little bit of AP now, but at this distance here, it's not really feasible. And that's also a reason I love an agile build on Hipper, because it allows me to take the ship into brawling distance, and that's where this AP on the ship really comes into its own, and you can just devastate the enemy if they make mistakes. From a position like this, it's a slow game of steadily taking out small chunks of the enemy. And sure, yeah, you get high damage scores and like usually a lot of kills, and but I just don't feel like I contribute. I feel like I'm sitting over here just dragging out time, waiting for someone to come and help me. I do like, with this build here, the fast reload. It's down to 8.5 seconds, and I'm used to playing this ship here with about 11 seconds, or actually 10 seconds, I think, here after the buff. But this is quite a different way to play the ship. I'm not used to being able to fire this often and set this many fires, for example. So yeah, it has its pluses, and obviously if this is your thing, then I can recommend putting on Müller or Azure Lane Hipper if you have her. I'm probably gonna upgrade Azure Lane Hipper completely now and see if like if I can live with her, because she does take away a bit of the rudder, which probably ends up pushing the rudder above 3 seconds. and I really don't like that. But on the other hand, you get a lot more damage and range, and you also get Ingenious with Azure Lane Hipper, and I really like that skill. It's not so important when you play at like long distances like this, um, because you'll be able to see the shells way far ahead. You don't really need Ingenious. But when you're playing in closer in an agile build, yes, Ingenious is absolutely critical, and you need it. So I have been playing with Azure Lane Hipper before, and I didn't like her. I think that was before Azure Lane Baltimore came out, with the improved 6% rudder as an inspiration. So I might revisit Azure Lane Hipper again and see what difference it makes. But again, I don't know yet. I think it's better to go all out in something instead of mixing. So if you have an agile cruiser, well, you go all out in agile. You don't compromise anything. And it's the same with this build here. If you want to do damage, then you go all out damage and range, whatever it is you pick. Don't mix, at least in my opinion. Another difference is the speed. This build here is only 2 or 3 knots slower than an agile build actually, but I feel it is very, very slow. And Hipper is already a slow cruiser. And as what happens in this game here, actually the enemy takes all 3 caps, and I really miss those extra knots to get in there and take the caps back. Now we do win this battle here, but it would have been easier if this cruiser was able to go 38, 39 knots. Now I don't engage in any brawling in this battle here with this build, and I imagine the results will be fairly different from what they are in an agile build, because I only have, well, I have 4.5 second rudder here, and that's not really fast enough to have the upper hand in most brawls. And the turret rotation is about 26 seconds. That's still very fast for a cruiser that doesn't use Ingenious. Mostly it's about 30 when you don't have that. But with Ingenious on Hipper, the turret rotation is like an insane 16 seconds or something like that, and I'm really used to that. And you can see that here, where I am just waiting for my rear guns to get into action, because this Baltimore is just ripe for an AP salvo, and I'm just not used to it taking this long. So I end up completely missing the chance, and having to use the rudder to actually get my rear guns into action here. And that's one of the main reasons actually that I run Ingenious. Also, it's nice to see the information that skill gives, but the turret rotation is the primary reason. And the turret rotation you get on using Azure Lane Baltimore as a commander instead of Müller, because she has access to Ingenious. And you'll miss out on 10% extra range by picking Ingenious instead, but I think that's well worth the sacrifice, because like I said before, it's rare you get to shoot at ships at an 18-kilometer distance. And when that happens, it's usually the last ship left anyway, and there's really nothing stopping you from just closing that distance and shooting at 16 kilometers instead. So I think this is the first time in a year that I've put Müller on Hipper as the primary commander. I mean, I always have him on as an inspiration. But as a primary commander, yeah, it's been a long time since I played this ship. I still much prefer Lutyens personally, and I don't think I would ever change that guy. I just love the rudder too much, and the speed, and the turret rotation. And let's not forget the extra heal and the extra sonar that you get with the Lutyens. I mean, you can pick that on some of the other commanders as well, but I just think that an extra sonar and an extra heal, it's worth a lot. And I have a really hard time giving that up. So we've ended up doing 142, 143,000 damage here, and that's only from a distance and only with HE actually. I've hardly shot any AP in this battle here, and that's unusual because I usually fire 90% AP when I'm in Hipper. But that's because when I play this ship with Lutyens, I'm much closer to the enemy generally, and AP is the better choice. But in this circumstance here with this build, so far HE has been the way to go. So get into a battle with a few legendary battleships and like 2 Yamatos, a Kurfürst, and if you're lucky, a Conqueror, because that one burns really well, and also the Hipper AP that pretty much eats that ship. So get into a battle with 3 Conquerors on the enemy team, and with this build here, you should do pretty well. I think you should like at least have a good chance of breaking 200,000 damage. If you can get off like a side of torps at the end of the battle or anything like that, that'll just like make the damage total even higher. Like I haven't been able to use torps at all in this battle here, and I think my record using AP only in a Hipper is about 188, 190, something like that. Actually on the same map here. And that was with an agile build. So even with HE here, you do 150-ish, and yeah, it's okay. But personally, I will stick with agile builds on Hipper. So that was a reload build, and I hope you liked it, and I'll see you out there.